non-stop taster session on the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit. So if, like me, you are an e4 player, and if, like me, you go, oh, not the Scandinavian again, right? When you play e4 and they play d5, you get into the Scandinavian. So what I play against this, you know what I tend to look for. I tend to prefer to get my opponent out of their safe knowledge and preparation as soon as possible to try and turn the game to my advantage, okay? So what I'm playing at the moment against the Scandinavian, when I see d5, is I play the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit. So what I'm going to do is we'll do a quick look on here on the Lichess database, just to see how relatively rare it is. Okay, and then I'm going to take you through 5 games. Right, so the most common move by a mile here is e takes d5, and that is also the engine move. That's plus 0.7 for white to capture here. Right, but that is what your Scandinavian player is going to expect. We don't want to do that. Move number 2, e5. The advance. Knight f3. Knight c3. I used to play the Scandinavian, so I've seen all of these all the time, right? And now, down in 5th place, we've got d4, and this is played only 1.5% of the time. So that means that your opponent is only going to see this in about every 1 in 65 games. Okay, and so they're not going to be very familiar with it. But if we go back one move, right, for e4, d5, the Scandinavian, is played 7.7% of the time. So you get where I'm going with this, right? If you're an e4 player, you're going to see the Scandi nearly 8% of the time. That's in 1 in 12, 1 in 13 games, right? Now, what we're saying is if you now follow up with d4, your Scandinavian player doesn't see this very often. This is the point, okay? So d4 isn't on the list of the top 5 best responses. Even bishop d3 does better than that, which is weird, okay? But we play d4. Okay, and from here, the computer eval bar is already saying that black's a bit better, but that's not the point, right? The point is, in the real world, white wins 51% of the time from here against 45 for black, and every continuation here in practice is slightly better for white. Okay, so let me show you why. Let me give you a flavour for it. So just sit back, relax, enjoy 5 quick games, and then you'll have an idea of what the Blackmar-Diemer is like. Now, because it's a gambit, we have to adopt a certain kind of position. Okay, so here we go. Scandi, d4. Invariably, they will take. Okay, they pretty almost must. You know, there are ways to decline it. And now we need not do knight c3, okay? So this is the Blackmar Gambit, and the Blackmar Gambit will continue with immediate f3, eliminating Freddy, but if they take, we get a knight out into the board pretty quickly, and a semi-open f-file, okay? But the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit is an improvement on that with knight to c3 first, and then the idea is to push f3, okay? So this one game is actually a game I just played today, which made me think of it because it's really fun. Okay, so they defend the central pawn with a pawn. Generally not the smartest idea, because look what he's just done. He's opened up the diagonal towards the king. Okay, so now I offer f3. Now your opponent's thinking, oh, these are doubled anyway. I may as well trade it off. But now you've got a stupid looking f-pawn, haven't you? Right? And look, right? I'm a pawn down, but I have 2 knights out in the board, and my opponent has a stupid f-pawn. So not too bad. Now he decides to defend that by pushing g6. Okay, so this is at the end of move 5. He has 0 pieces developed. Nothing. Right, out comes my bishop. And look, already I'm ready to castle short. Okay, very typical idea. Get your rook onto the semi-open f-file. Right. He fianchettos his bishop on g7. Looking at this pawn. It's attacked twice, defended twice, so I don't have to respond to that. So I'll just go ahead and castle, right? And my opponent is looking really, really tardy here, isn't he? He's just not good. So now he brings out his knight. Are you really going to castle that way? Well, you're not right now, because you have to castle into check, which you can't. Okay, so now my other bishop flies out. I'm just going develop, 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 control as much of the board as possible, and then pow. I want to smack him down. Right, now he pushes a pawn. This is not the way to play. Okay, in comes the knight now. I had to think about this move. In comes the knight, and I'm looking at this square. Right? If the pawn was there, I could still be looking at that square. But the point is that I can now come in with my bishop, would force king f8, or knight would fork queen and rook. Very unpleasant. So my opponent now is forced to move his rook across to f8 to defend this square. And it is not a good idea to trade 2 minor pieces for a rook. Even a rook and a pawn is generally not advisable. So, the rook is now covering this square. Right, rook's covering the square. So, now it's just time to pile on the pressure. Get the queen off the back rank. That's complete development, right? Queen off the back rank, centralise the rooks, happy days. Pawn move, why? Rook A to E1. You can see how the pressure is piling up now. Right? Now he brings his queen out to here. Okay, so we have options. Bishop f4, just drop back. Now that this kind of, my bishop wasn't really doing anything there. That knight's not going anywhere in a hurry. So let's put the bishop here where it's defended by the rook and think about maybe a discovered attack on the queen. And the move that I see, for example, is to take on g6, attack the rook. Queen has to move, I win a pawn and an exchange. All right. Now, he comes down here and grabs this pawn, which I didn't notice. Okay, but in actual fact, it doesn't really harm me very much, because now we have a completely open d-file. Okay, it does come with check. I have to move the king. Queen retreats, and now I go, oh, you've just put your queen back on the square where it's in line with the discovery, so thank you very much. Grab the g-pawn, hitting the rook, hitting the queen. Queen retreats there, and I grab the rook instead of grabbing the hanging queen. Go figure. Right, this is the problem with blinkered thinking. I'm railroaded. Grab the rook. He takes... I still don't notice the queen's hanging. Good lord. Now I try and trade off bishops. and he notices. Right? But it's all going to end in tears very, very soon. I'm actually even a pawn up right now. So rook goes across to d1, hitting the queen. Knight blocks. I could just eliminate that knight, really. Takes. I've got bishop takes. Got all kinds of ideas here. Take the knight. Yeah, there we go. And now I'm not even in a rush to take this pawn. Right? Move my rook from f1 to e1. And now if my bishop... Let's say I trade off bishops. Right? And then I just capture here. And the game's going to end. So he defends the pawn on e7. I grab the pawn now. And now I've got an overwhelm on here. But in reality, what I'm wanting to do is put my queen here. And then come in there with mate. And there goes my queen. Now he pushes forwards to block the bishop support of g8. So I just come in with my other bishop. And this is just one of those really, really nice games where you just completely... So here I'm threatening, obviously, bishop h5 with a skewer on the king. Queen comes here, trading bishop queens. I'm not interested. I've got to check anyway. He blocks. And with pretty short order, bang, he loses his rook. And that's checkmate. Okay? That's game number 1. Game number 2. Here, this is a 5-minute blitz. My opponent's rated 1165. Takes. Knight comes out. Again, pawn. And here, this is an alternative move. You can throw this move in, really, at this point, instead of pushing f3 immediately and capturing there. Brings out his knight. Kick the knight. Why not? Okay, knight's now looking at my bishop. Drop it back. And now again he pushes a pawn. You see this compulsion to hang on to your pawns. So this is what I like about Gambit lines, is you can really mess up your opponent's position. Okay, so now I'm attacking the knight with development. It's undefended. So he has to do something. Okay, again, we have the bishop fianchetto in the corner. Knight e2 now, knight g2, e2. His knight now retreats. So that's the third move for that knight. For that same knight in 8 moves. Lift my queen. Now I've got options of castling either side. He puts his bishop there, I go long. Okay, knight comes back here. That'd be very tempting to grab that knight. But I don't. I bring in my other knight. Okay, so now maybe rook h1, start to push here, break through, go after the king. Simple plans. Now he develops a knight and boom, straight in there with a fork on queen and bishop. So he's going to have to take. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and now look at this pawn. Evil, controlling those 2 squares. And just look how much more comfortable I am as white. Yeah, I'm a pawn down, but that's not the point. The point is my king's safe. You know, he's absolutely fine. I've got great position here. I've got all my stuff is out on the board. Right, he comes in here, maybe kind of eyeing up that. I don't know, what's he doing? What's he really doing? So just h3, kick the knight back. Okay, you want to trade off? That's fine. He could have actually had the pawn here, but then he couldn't escape. Because he can't go there, there, or there. So he can't really have the pawn. He goes back. Also, after I took there, I'm looking at the rook, aren't I? So he has to come back and block. And now I just pile on the pressure, right? And this is when it gets really easy. It gets really easy to find good moves when you have the initiative from the start. Okay? I could have grabbed the knight, but it is actually defended twice, so I couldn't really. Defended by pawn and then queen. But it means that the queen is tied down now to being the second defender of the knight. Okay, so g4, bust things open. Queen comes across, now I take the knight. And now I take the rook. Okay, now he castles. So he's hugely behind. Hit the queen, pushes a pawn, hit the knight, trade off. Why not? Bishop on the light squares here. Now his pawns are on dark squares, right? So rook across, queen comes in. Okay, I'm not threatening mate because he's got queen takes, but it means his queen again is stuck in a defensive role. And surely, I just had mate in 1 there. Surely queen here is mate. And for some bizarre reason I go into the corner. There you go. That's what you get with blitz, guys. That's why we shouldn't play it. And just a lot of fiddling around, but I'm up a whole bishop and a rook, so I just want to swap everything off and clean the board up. Okay, and there we go, and it's all going to end very soon. In fact, it doesn't. It goes on for another 10 moves or so, but you know, black's got nothing there. Game number 3. Let's have a quick look. Takes, knight out. Now knight defense. Now this is the better move. I think also e5 is a good move here. So knight defends here. And so f3. You can also play bishop c4. Nothing wrong with that. f3 takes, knight takes. And that's black to move. He develops a bishop. This is quite common. We see this a lot. Okay. You'd be tempted to play, following my video on the Legal trap, I'd be tempted to play the Italian bishop here with ideas of that, but the knight here in this position, particular position, is defending the bishop, so it probably wouldn't work. So break the pin, get ready to castle. Pushes a pawn, castles, right? Really on the front foot here, really leading in development. And to be honest, you know, that one pawn I do not miss at all, because I've got a semi-open F file, I've got a semi-open E file, and he's not castled. That's the point. Okay, takes. That was silly, right? Now he's way behind in development. I'm castled with 2 pieces out on the board. He's got 1. And he pushes a pawn, right? And this guy's rated 1294. So there's no slap triplets. Okay, D5 now. Just saying, okay, let's just keep opening things up. Takes. And now, boom. Serious attack there. In fact, I do believe bishop takes there would be mate, because it's a discovered attack by the queen there. So he can't allow that. And do I deliver checkmate? Boom. Bishop takes f7, the best move in chess, and it's checkmate. Beauty. Okay, so guys, so there you go, nice little finish. I'll wrap it up now at 3 games. I think that's enough to give you a flavour of the Blackmar-Diemer. I like it very much. It's also got a bunch of equivalents in some other openings as well, but we don't need to go into that today. But if you're looking for a way to meet the Scandinavian head-on in a way that, you don't care too much about what the fish says, but about what works in real life, I've got good results with this so far. And it suits my style. Hopefully it suits yours. And if so, you're welcome. See you later.